I'm just gonna email Seth.
He's here.
Oh, he's here?
Yep.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I didn't see you.
I'm hiding.
Okay. All right. Good evening. I'm gonna open the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee of January 24th, 2022. Call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Start with Mr. Eager, our clerk,
Charles Eager, clerk here.
Seth Burdick,
Seth Burdick present.
Mark Lynch,
Mark Lynch present.
Ray Perone, treasurer,
Present.
Fran Parks present. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or as best you can? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
all. Thank you. Is there any public comment via chat, please?
I see nothing at this point.
Okay, thank you. And just before the treasurer's report, I'd like to see if there is any question about the December 20th minutes of the Prudential Committee meeting.
I have no comments. Nor
Seth?
have I. Nope.
Okay. Could I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All those
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Parks, aye. Thank you. Ray, do you want to do your report?
Yes, thank you. I was going to begin with tab 3, which is the expenses, just to kind of give an overview with the Tom and the chief will come behind and do the detail. Overall, we're either on budget or below in all areas except one. In the Prudential, the salaries are on budget and actually below last year. Insurance is on budget. I carved that out because that's a one big time expense and that was on budget. The workers' comp is a little over budget, but that's because the workers' comp is gross and doesn't take into account the receipts we get to offset the sick pay. All other expenses are well below budget, even taking into account that the audit fee, which will be coming in fairly soon, since the audit is complete. And as a side note, I would expect a report sometime in the latter part of February. There were no adjustments that I'm been made aware of. In the fire department, salaries are below budget. We've had the retirement of the chief and the deputy, which have taken them off the rolls last month. In other areas, we're also well below budget, even though there's a $37,000 dispatch fee that we paid in January. When you take that into account, we're still below budget. In the water department, salaries are below budget. And notable in that area is a low OT, overtime. Expenses, again, below budget, primarily in the engineering cost area. Freedom Hall in the salary area is the one area where we're over. We level funded that, and we have our person back at that station, making up for some lost time. The expenses remain well below budget in the Freedom Hall. Street lights, again, well below budget. We've been lucky on maintenance, and electricity costs have been below. Debt service, on budget, on schedule. And you'll note that we have no short-term, just long-term principal this time, because of last year's refinancing, we have no need of short-term financing this year. In the benefit area, we have the effect of the holiday, which granted a 1-month reprieve on billing. So we are well behind in our insurance costs. The retirement was on budget, and the medical stipend is also on budget. Transfers were all completed and are on budget. Looking at the overall summary on the revenue side, tax collections are on budget, albeit a bit slower than last year. Part of that is due to the lower levy. Taxes are lower this year, but the collections are actually lower than that. They're down about 11%. The levy was only down about 4%.
Ray, can you
Fire
remind
department's
me
below budget.
why the levy was down 4% from last year?
Basically, we had the increase in water revenue, which helped us offset the normal increase in tax levy.
Got it. Thank you.
The water department is running below budget, and unlike last year, the pump volume is lower, and that suggests that our January billing will be down, and will probably be down for the year. That's my estimate. However, overall, we'll be fine because we have grant revenue that was unanticipated in the budget, which will offset that shortfall. The fire department is well ahead of the budget. Collections are running at 65% for ambulance. Plus, there's a $68,000 radio grant that we were the recipient of this year. In the other category, the big item there is the COVID relief, which we got money this year for the expenses last year. And as I said, that will offset any shortfall that we'll have in the water revenue area. So overall, grants will make up for any decline in water revenue, and I anticipate that tax revenue will continue on schedule. And overall, as I went through on the expenses, again, either at or below budget with the one minor exception. Turning to articles, we have a few articles. We have the space needs, which is available for spending at the Prudential Committee's discretion. The water department security system, which is winding down according to Chris, and we can project that we'll be closing that out at the annual district meeting. Fire station repairs are in process. And the water tank balance is a carryover from the Main Street water tank. It is split into two parts because of the type of financing. $180,000 of that is available for any 10-year project, but only $132,000, the remaining, is available for a 30-year project. And that's by definition of the regulations regarding reuse of articles. In the new articles, we have the backup ambulance pending. We have the deputy's car that is at the dealers for equipment installation, and I imagine will be delivered fairly soon. School property is standing ready for when there is an acquisition or a proposed acquisition to fund those costs, and the remaining is a money for the evaluation of alternatives for the school property. That kind of wraps up my my report. Is there any questions?
Ray, to go back to the expenditure section, there was a $37,000 dispatch number. I assume that is for a 911 contract? Can you just,
No, it's not 911, it's for the fire department dispatch. When people call in on 911, they are dispatched through a central service at COM, or at the sheriff, isn't it? The chief is here, I'm sure he can speak to that more intelligently than I can. It's a central dispatching unit for all fire departments.
okay, so someone
What's
calls
the answer?
911 and the fire trucks or ambulances are dispatched and we pay for that service to a third party, which is COM or,
No, I believe we pay to COM, and I believe it's run by the sheriff. Is the,
Yeah, so
Rick,
the 911 calls
Chief,
go
what
into the Barnstable PD, and then the Barnstable PD does a ring down to COM Fire, and COM Fire dispatches the Katuitt apparatus.
okay,
Is that-
thank
is
you.
that the-
And Ray, that's an annual fee, that's a one-time fee?
annual one-time fee,
Great,
and it's
thank you.
about the same level as it was last year.
Any other questions for Ray? Okay. So we'll start with the mid-year budget report from the water department. Tom? Did we lose Tom?
There we go. Yeah, I sent out some documents to everybody a couple of days ago, showing you where we were to date. And I don't know if you guys want to share that, if you want to bring that up. I'm not sure if that's something you can show on your screen. But our fiscal year 2022 appropriations versus what we spent, and like Ray alluded to, we're in really good shape here. We're above what we budgeted for, or below what we budgeted for, with one exception being our water mains. And that's something that I'll address when we talk a little bit about our 5-year capital improvement plan. We also, let's see, I think that was really the only one. I mean, a little bit on dues and licenses, because we have to renew all of our professional licenses this year. Other than that, we're in good shape. Do you guys have any questions on that spreadsheet there? At the bottom, it does show the security system, and that project is now wrapped up. Chris, feel free to chime in anytime you'd like.
Yeah, we're in a spot right now where water mains is over, as you can see, by $14,000 there, a little and change. We're down to about $6,000 or close to $7,000 in stations and tanks, and I have about $7,000 worth of preventive maintenance before the end of the year that has to be done. So there's a little bit there that might end up being over into the maintenance, but I believe operations will have soaked that up with where other areas are down this year. We should be fine at the end of the year here. I don't foresee any overages as long as there's no drastic emergencies.
Well, you have that $26,000 from the security system that's finished after how many years?
Yeah, that was tough. And to tell you the truth, we were thinking about turning it back earlier, but with everything with security, with the cybersecurity and everything, we added that cyber in, and that was another project that we could use that money for, because it came right under the security still, just
Yeah.
added on to the project we already had. And they have finally finished that up about a month ago and just got the last bill on it. So yeah, that's nice to be able to give it back, but it's nice to finally wrap it up. I hate leaving it around like that.
Chris, give me a little historical background. What was the security system from 19?
It actually started a long time before that. We were trying to
Right.
put some cameras and up to our SCADA system, which is a supervisory control and data acquisition center, basically, that keeps and runs our tire pumping stations and everything else. So we can actually do it through our phones and everything. We ended up putting fiber optic into all of our stations and our tanks. So we have video cameras at each spot now where we can see if anybody's there, anything that happens. It was a really good project that came through, and it took a while to get things going. Then it was a piece by piece to get the price that we had there. The fiber had to go in, then the cameras had to go in, then they had to put the SCADA system in, and all these different upgrades and everything else. But it's finally done. It just took a long time to do over time. And of course, we had to already upgrade it once. So it's happened in the middle of it.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Seth, do you have any questions?
Not particularly. Well, I guess one. What was the genesis of the overage in the water mains? Was it just, there was one that broke, or was it just
Well,
maintenance?
yeah, we've had probably, usually on an average, we have 3 to 4 leaks a year, and we've probably had 6.
Oh.
And they're not just minor ones. We're getting actually water main breaks that are happening where instead of services that are leaking, where you can go in and replace in 4 hours, they're taking all day, and they're taking up giant, huge pieces of concrete or road, which is not cheap right now. Actually, you know, that a big chunk of that is just paving.
I bet.
Yeah, so it's just gone over a lot from stuff happening like in a 4-way intersection. And in the very beginning, we did some upgrades on one of the pumping stations. We put a new meter inside it, master meter. And to put that in, we had to repipe the whole inside to have it done. So I started out spending a lot of money in the budget within the first 2 months. And it's just, we had an outfall after that.
Right. And, as the system stands, do you anticipate it's going to continue in this track, or is it going to be, you've got it over
Yeah,
with?
that's
Or
something Tom will bring up a little more into like the 5-year plan. We're talking about doing some infrastructure maybe down the line here, replacing some of the older water mains so this doesn't happen and stuff.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
Chris,
we have water mains that are, that were built in the 30s.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was
1936, yeah.
So there's probably, thousands and thousands of feet of old water mains
Correct.
starting to blow one at a time. So there you go.
Chris, is
Chris,
that
can I ask-
where the breaks are occurring in that older?
Yeah, a couple of them have had, we've had a radial crack and a linear crack on the older water mains, and they're old cast iron mains, and ground shifts underneath the ground, anyways, any kind of movement. It's just, you got that structure going, and it's going to give eventually, and they just crack.
Okay. What's the newer stuff made of?
Ductile iron, which is a lot stronger and thinner.
Say it again.
Ductile iron, it's a lot stronger and thinner metal.
Ductile.
Yeah.
Got it.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I think it's in Presidential Pines. Is that one water main or hydrant still open, dripping?
Yes, there's a we have one going there that we have a bleeder on, and that's to keep the water moving at all time. There's a pretty low spot right there, and we have a house there that has a lot of dirty water complaints, and it must be that the main's just real low there. So we try to keep that going to try to minimize any kind of iron and manganese complaints over there, and to keep the water as clean as possible.
Is that, there's no other solution to that, or?
We could put an automatic flusher there, but we don't have any place to blow it off to. It would end up going in the middle of the road, then we're gonna have a hazard if we did something like that. So a blow off's just a way to keep the water moving at all time, and we get to write it off with the state at the end that as a usage.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Tom.
Other questions? You guys good on that? Lisa, you should have the water department's proposed budget for fiscal year 2023 compared to the appropriations in 2022. And
Do they-
You see
Yeah, do they
it?
need that now? Or-
yeah, that's perfect. Thank
No.
you. Thank
You don't need that now. You don't, you're not expecting that till another couple months, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a work in progress. Absolutely. And you can see that the salaries haven't been worked out yet. We anticipate needing to go up on those, particularly because both our senior operators, our field operators from prior years, are becoming senior operators because they've been there for 7 years. And then we have one junior operator who's doing great work. Everybody's doing great work. So we've got to figure out some steps into the salaries, but that's not shown at all. And then with respect to our maintenance and operations budgets, they're pretty level. There's some ups and downs in places, but I think it's well described there in the notes. Does anybody have any questions on that? Take your time, take a look.
I don't have any questions on it, Tom.
No,
No, I've looked at it, Tom, previously, and I don't have any questions on this.
Yeah, it looks pretty good, I think. And then the last document that I sent you guys, I don't know if you want to talk about that now, Fran?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know it's early and I anticipate coming back and meeting with you guys probably in February. Is that the case?
Yes, usually for the budget for FY '23.
So there's some things on here. We're starting to, scratch out some numbers and get some estimates on what it's going to cost to maintain our water in the high quality that it is. And as you can see on the top line, the treatment plant, and we put that in the furthest year out in a 5-year budget projection, just because we'd like to not do that. But we do think that if we don't start doing more source water protection, that we're going to have to do that. To address some sodium problems, potentially PFAS, but those we haven't detected yet in the system, so we're good. So we're kind of keeping our fingers crossed on a lot of the source water protection and the water quality work. We do have an estimate from a couple of years back that a treatment plant would run about $10 to $11 million. And what we're hoping for is that we can head that off by just working harder in the watershed. And we had a nice study just presented to us a couple of months ago on source water protection, where they identified potential sources. And it's not large stuff, it's non-point stuff. It's like neighborhoods with septic systems, stormwater runoff from paved surfaces. Nothing major, which is good, but it adds up, contributing nitrogen, sodium, potentially some contaminants of emerging concern coming from households, including pharmaceuticals and household cleaners, all things that if they get into our water system at any kind of elevated levels, we're going to have to treat. So we put some projections in there for some testing, as well as some innovative septic solutions. Those are nitrogen reducing systems, and they're being piloted heavily by Barnstable Clean Water Coalition over around Schubel's Pond. They cost about 20 grand each to put in, but once they're in, they're Title V, they're good for 30, 40 years, and they remove nitrogen contamination. So we're thinking we want to explore maybe some grant opportunities or some district level funding to go ahead and target a few households in areas of where our water comes from, right? So areas of what am I looking for here, Chris?
Zone 2, the zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zone 2 areas of contribution and that we've had mapped recently, and try to identify some sites that have older systems that might be leaching some nitrogen into our watersheds, into Zone 2 areas of contribution, and then see if we can't convince some of the homeowners to upgrade their systems so we can help them out. So that's what those projections are for 2024 out to 2028. Looking about updating about 4 systems per year. The trucks, we do need a new service truck in 2023. That'll be put into the budget. The lime truck, we don't need until 2029 or 2030. Superintendent's trucks projected to take us another 3 years out to FY 2026. We do have some electrical upgrades at pump stations that have been recommended by our service personnel as well as the superintendent and his staff. And we've got two stations that we'd like to get done this year. Both number 1 and number 3. So that's just upgrading the pump stations, make sure everything's working well, and deal with some corrosion issues that happen over time. And the well cleaning and rehab is the same kind of deal. That's looking at corrosion issues within the wells themselves and getting those cleaned out, rehabilitated so that they continue to deliver clean water to the surface. The last couple lines there, the GIS software and the billing software and utility cloud, Ray and Fran and Jen have been working on that, Lisa as well, I'm sure, on trying to upgrade the systems as well as make sure or try to get them so that they communicate well together, or that they're all the same, so that people are working with the same data sets. So in a nutshell, that's kind of our capital improvement plan. And again, it's just a plan, and the treatment plan at 10 to 20 mil is something that we think we can avoid, but you're looking in a crystal ball. And so you hope to hedge your bets by dealing with the source water contamination and source water mapping and trying to put some programs in place that are going to deal with any contamination before it hits a wellhead. Dealing with the sources is always a better option. It's more effective, it's more efficient, and it's cheaper than dealing with contaminants once they're in your watershed, once they're in your water system. Any questions on that?
Yeah, remind me where pump number 2 is.
2's out in the main well fields. So there's pump 3 is the one behind the coop, behind the grocery store.
And
Pump
pump
5.
2 is the one where we think
The
they're
sand pit.
possible. I'm sorry.
That's where the sand pit is. If you ever walk out in the well field, it's the one with the sand pit beside it.
It's one closest to the old tank.
Okay, and that's where we think that there's possibility of homes, systems potentially contaminating.
That or pump 3 or 4. Not 3, I'm sorry. 1, 2, or 4 are all in that.
Fall into that category.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would suggest anybody who wants to really understand, listen to the December Water Commissioners meeting, where they gave the report of the investigation that the students did. They aren't students. It was excellent. It was an excellent, informative presentation. And it certainly highlighted the need to address all of these nitrate issues. I had one other, I didn't see on your capital plan, and I don't know how often it has to be done, but the cleaning of the inside and the outside of the tanks.
Usually that can be handled, the cleaning of the inside, we can handle through budget,
Okay.
usually with a yearly budget. Unless something has to be repainted or anything like that's when we'd have to call. If we had trouble and had to do something, we might have to do something. But the commissioners at this point do not want to spend the money that we spent to have it cleaned on the outside
Right,
when
yeah.
it takes a year for it to grow right back. It was kind of, I don't want to say a waste of money, but it's not eating at the paint. It's just aesthetics. It doesn't look good. That's all.
Okay.
Uh, Graham, Chris, the other thing to remember is that we have a reserve specifically for tank maintenance for the.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so if anything that has to be done out of there, we could actually use out of that fund. You're correct, yes.
Exactly.
I have a question about the service truck.
Sure.
Last year, we had a special district meeting to approve of purchasing a truck for the assistant superintendent, and then then the position was lost and we no longer have that. Is it possible that that new truck we bought can be repurposed to be this service truck instead of purchasing another one?
No, the truck we bought is, this, the way this is written, it says superintendent's truck on here for 2026, which is actually the pickup truck that we have tools and equipment out of and
I'm
work out
talking
of.
about this, yeah, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the service truck in 2023. Can
Yeah.
can the new assistant superintendent truck that no longer is being driven by a assistant superintendent, can that be repurposed to be this service truck planned for 2023?
So
Well,
that truck wasn't really for an assistant superintendent. It was for all staff to use.
Yeah.
And we still have the same number of staff. So we did lose the assistant superintendent. And rather than hire another assistant superintendent, because two of our operators were becoming well-established enough and knowledgeable enough to become senior operators, we thought we'd save some money there and not hire an assistant superintendent, instead hire an operator, general operator, which we did. But we still need the same number of trucks.
yeah, that's that truck that we have, the service truck that we're going for is the plow truck / service truck. It's not the lime truck, which is also a service truck. And then we have the superintendent's vehicle, which is actually being used by another employee. And he's driving around and still using it as a semi-service truck. It's equipped to help out with service stuff. It just doesn't have full equipment on it. And then I have the Colorado, the little 4-cylinder truck that has just basic equipment on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Tom, with regard to the treatment plant, I was previously under the impression that was primarily with regard to potential for PFAS contamination. Is that incorrect? Are there other?
No, that
Potential issues?
the primary purpose for that is to remove manganese and iron. That was from consultants who based on our manganese and iron levels, which are not regulated contaminants, but they're problems because they build up in the pipes, they cause corrosion, as well as they get in people's homes and discolor their appliances and their clothes and stuff. So that was for iron and manganese treatment. If we have a PFAS hit, that's probably gonna raise that about 20 to 30%.
The state can mandate that, correct?
The state will mandate that if we have a PFAS hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least one other district on the Cape has had a PFAS hit. And well, they've had to establish a water filtration plant. I thought it was for PFAS.
It
Yeah.
is.
Is
They have, and I
There's three
believe,
of them.
yeah.
that right? Which
As well
districts
as
are
the
they?
base.
Hyannis has one right now. I believe Barnstable just was told that they have to put one in.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't, is it Yarmouth and Chatham?
Chatham.
Chatham has one, yeah.
What's the time frame when you got a PFAS hit? I assume when you say a PFAS hit, just explain to us what that means.
Okay, there's actually 26 different things they're testing for in the PFAS poly
Family.
Yeah, family.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's 6 of them, the PFAS 6 right now that they actually test. And if you have a combined total of 10 parts per trillion, then you exceed the limit and they put you into where you have to try to get rid of it. Right now, we have we have detected, I believe it's like 5.8 or 6 between our stations. So they said, you know, you're still in good shape. And actually today I went out and did the testing for our second set. So this is going to dictate whether we really have to do anything or not. With these results that come up, they might give us some kind of a waiver for the rest of the year, or I might have to test for them every 3 months for a little while. So they could tell me that we're good, we won't have to test for another year, and then we'll try it again in a year.
And
So-
the three districts we talked about, those were all that have filtration plants. Those were all necessitated by PFAS.
Yes.
Now, the one
Okay.
in Barnstable, I don't know that they've been told they have to build a plant yet. They're working on dilution at this point, right?
They, yeah, they're still trying to mix
Blended water.
and dilute, yeah.
Which
And
which district is that?
Barnstable Fire District, which is the same size as us right now.
And based on the nature of the contamination, is it not a bloom and does it not continuously work its way out throughout?
It goes nowhere. It's here forever.
Yeah, so it's inevitable that we have to build a filtration plant at some point.
Yeah, something's going to happen, or we're going to have to try to figure out a way to make sure it doesn't come this way.
How do you do that?
Good luck with that.
Right.
Well,
So
they
we should
do.
plan
There
on
is,
the 20 million and be done with it.
there is technology out there that's being applied throughout the country in experimental and innovative processes to put up barriers, right?
That would be
Just like
interesting.
you have reactive barriers for nitrogen, you can have reactive barriers for PFAS. So the PFAS family, the perfluoroalkyl substances, they act like your cell membranes, and they become incorporated in your body. Your body doesn't know any difference between those and the lipids, the general carbon compounds that make up your cell membranes. They're forever chemicals. So once they're in you and once they're in your system, they're really difficult to get out, but you can treat the water with activated carbon systems, and then you've got long-term maintenance bills as well. So it's something that we need to be aware of, and Chris got ahead of the curve and started testing before the state asked us to test. And that gave us some flexibility for our testing schedule. And like he said, he was out again today doing is that the second round of testing we've done now?
Yes, it'll be the second round, yes.
So, we're gonna try to stay ahead of it and do whatever we can. And if we do end up getting above the 10 parts per trillion at any point in time, and the state wants us to consider or tells us that we've got to put in a treatment plant, then we'll have to do that, right?
What's the timeline along that kind of thing? Like we go to 12 parts per trillion. Next time we test, we tell the state, and they say you need a filtration plant effective when.
This is combined, so it's it could be 3 from one station, 2 from another, 5 from another. So they might say, shut one of your stations down, don't pump that station, and then you're below the line that you can be to be out there. So until you can get something fixed, leave that station offline. So we could potentially lose the station for right now. They won't let us put a new station in or try to find someplace where there isn't this. They'll make us fix the problem, which is treat that station. Whether they don't make micro plants though, really just to test little teeny stations. And that's the problem. And we're so small that we'd have to put a giant plant in and bring the 3 producers of it into it. It would have to be down that well field or something like that. Depends where we found it.
So the 5.8 to 6 parts per trillion is like a cumulative number? Explain that
Correct.
to us.
Correct. That's it doesn't detect unless there's over 2 for the beginning. So if you get a detection of 2.1, you have a 2.1 at that station. If you get a detect, say it's like right now at station 1, I think we have like a 3.4. But over at station Number 4, there's a 2.6 or something like that. So those go together, you combine those, and that's your level, or another 2.1, something like that. So whatever the level that we have right now that comes up, it's because they took station 1 and station 2's figures, combined them together, and that's what is giving us the 6.
Even though both were tested in parts per trillion, you
Correct.
still.
You
add 'em
still
up.
take one, yeah, you take the one result and the other result, and you add them together, and that's your result. So
Yeah.
we have 5 stations. So if I got to detect it each one, you got to figure it comes from you can it's not detected unless it's over 2. So you're already over 10 then if you got one at each spot. Where even if it was a 2.1, you'd end
Okay.
up with a 10.5, something like
Okay.
that.
So there are interim things you can do, but essentially, if you got to 2.1 in each of the 5 wells, what happens then?
And you shut one of them down. You say, I'm not pumping that one, number 3 over here that only pumps 350 gallons a minute. So now I'm out at an 8.4.
Okay. And in the meantime,
Then we start looking
together
for
a
a way to fix the
filtration plant?
problem, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We pray.
how long does that take?
Could take 1-2 years, not more. You got to go out. Everything's a process with a municipality. You got to get a bid. You got to go out. You got to hire a firm. You got to get
Yeah.
a bid process.
Yeah.
Then you got to get the bid there. Then everybody right now is building plants. There's, like we said, there's a couple going on in Massachusetts right now. So to find a company that can come in and do it, you see, and whether they do it, if they do it, they're going to also do an iron and manganese plant. So you're going to be taking out everything you can, and then we'll be dousing it there. And you're not going to get the same tasting water you have right now, but it'll be healthy.
Chris, is it at all possible, since it sounds like this is almost inevitable, to partner with Barnstable and expand whatever capacity that they're building in to handle ours?
That would be very expensive because we'd have to pipe our water over to them first, or vice versa. So we have to run all our pipes into one plant, then pipe it out afterwards. So we couldn't, get the water there right now. That's the whole problem. We'd have to go through another town to get there and everything else too. Yeah.
Is that, have we looked at how much that costs versus a grant? I mean, 10 to 20 million is a pretty daunting number.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Okay.
It is.
Thank you. And I'm delighted to see that the security system is finished. I'm beginning to think not in my lifetime. See you next month. Rick,
Right.
the fire chairman?
Yeah, hi. Can you
Hi.
hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. I've had some trouble hearing Ray, but the rest of my sound seems to be working okay. Thank you, Lisa, for putting that up. This is our 6-month standing expenditure ledger. As Ray summarized earlier, overall, in the first general category of salaries, we're doing pretty well. We have a clear problem in full-time injury, where we've already, by the end of December, expended 90% of what was budgeted. So we do expect a significant overage there by the time that's resolved. We have had some good news recently that firefighter who's out on injury right now is expected back next month, which will be a very welcome change for lots of reasons. The other category that you might notice is longevity pay, and that's 66%. That's elevated because of the timing of when people get their longevity, meet their longevity standards and get their their pay. But overall in salaries, we are running at a little over 44% at the 6-month mark. So I think we are in good shape. Do you have any questions in that category before I go on?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Nope.
No,
Okay. Under expenses, as you see, we're running well below 50% in most categories. Now, keep in mind that invoices tend to come in late, so you're really looking at more what's been invoiced and paid. So it'll be a little higher, but overall, I think we're in good shape. The one category that ought to grab your attention is miscellaneous, where we budgeted $1,000 and have expended over 68,000. Certainly caught my attention. It turns out, of course, that is all the new digital radio system, and that amount is going to be reimbursed by the grant that Ray listed on the general fund report. But that grant money doesn't show up in the fire department budget. It'll show up in the general fund, but that will end up covering that item. So overall, and even with that, we're running at about 36.5% at the 6-month mark. You have any other questions or concerns about expenses?
Rick, I will
no,
be reclassing that 68,000 out of your department into a separate category. We won't offset it with the grant revenue because of accounting rules. It will not be part of your departmental budget.
Okay, so we'll get rid of the expense rather than capture
Exactly.
the income.
Yes,
Very good, works for me.
Yeah, sounds good.
Encumbrances, so overall, we are at a little over 43%. In terms of our revenues, we're running well, as you saw in the general fund report, running well ahead of last year. Things have certainly picked up, and we are pretty busy. That's what I have about expenditures at the 6-month mark. I'd be happy to go on to capital planning.
Sounds good.
Lisa, can we get that up? Thank you. Oops, where are we? I'm looking at 2 screens here. I think that's the same screen I have up on.
No, this is the expenditure level, ledger.
Oh, right, we're back to,
that's my report.
I have,
Yeah. Lisa, can we have the fire department capital plan? Just looking for it.
okay.
Hold
I can start before it goes up. In FY 22, we have from the last annual meeting, we were allocated the monies for a new vehicle for the deputy. I think Ray touched on that earlier. The vehicle is probably going to be deliverable in February, but we don't have a specific date. So that money is available and on hand. Our facilities improvements to date, I had trouble finding FY 22 on that, but we have some monies left in the station improvements that are awaiting the final costs for both painting and some flooring repairs that are being done. The delay has been getting the requisite number of bids. As you all know, I suspect most of these construction outfits are pretty busy, but we are working on getting our third bid in to get the painting done, and the flooring problem is being addressed. In FY 23, looking out, the next major expense would be the ambulance. We have projected a cost just under $345,000. That item is going to be undergoing a lot of discussion. I noticed that our on the attendance, I don't see him right now, but I believe Lieutenant Sabatinelli is on board and watching this meeting. He presented some very exciting ideas about capital planning in his interview with the board. I look forward to working with him to examine options around that ambulance line item. On the same line, it doesn't show here, but we have monies for, get the right screen to show. Now I can't find it. We have two simultaneous arrangements for possibly capturing use of a spare ambulance. Sandwich is projected to be getting delivery of a new ambulance. They will take their older one, and it might be available for us to use as a shared spare ambulance with them at modest cost to the district. The earlier option of the one that will be taken out of service by Chatham is still in the works, but they are also awaiting delivery of a new vehicle before they can release the old one. So we'll go forward, hopefully with the new chief on board, trying to examine those options and see what makes the most sense for the district for both a spare ambulance and a new ambulance. We are also budgeting out in 24 for a brush breaker replacement. That will be under discussion. And the next, as to whether or not we need one, whether the old one can be strung out longer, whether we can find a sharing arrangement with an adjoining district. And in 25, the major item is a new pumper. And we will be looking at that quite carefully with the new chief as well. So this is the, I think, as Water said, you know, you do a lot of guessing when you try to project out about capital needs. Clearly, the issue of station renovation or even the possibility of the old elementary school rebuild are things that we will have to work with the new chief to review, but we don't have any projection for it right now. Any questions about that?
I have a question about either of those, the Sandwich or the Chatham ambulances. Can I assume they would fit in our station?
Yes.
Okay, and would the Sandwich one would have to be outfitted for paramedic use?
Well, the Chatham one would need to be, that's what we have the monies in hand for, modified for advanced life support.
Yeah.
Fully equipped for it if it was going to be a useful second call ambulance. The details for the Sandwich one would be similar, but the cost sharing arrangement hasn't been finalized. There'd be a lot of negotiation around developing a contractual arrangement with them. They've been very accommodating and helpful. They're looking forward to working with us, but none of that has been finalized.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for the fire commissioners?
Not for me.
No, thank you.
No. Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
Okay.
And we have one chat from Tom. He said he forgot to provide a brief on the water department revenues. Our revenue to date is 499 plus 1,000. We expect another 557 rounding 1,000, so should come in about 1.05 million is what I'm reading. The funds come from a variety of sources, primarily water fees, but also our water meter fees for our stabilization fund, solar revenues, and antenna money.
Great, thank you. Okay. Streetlights, as we're losing the Siemens that has been the maintenance people that we've used for our streetlights. And the change to the LCD streetlights was facilitated by the Cape Light Compact. So they had a couple of meetings the middle of January. We've agreed with Siemens to an extension to the current contract to June 30th. So we're covered for repairs until then. And the discussion was with all the towns on the Cape, including the fire districts, about what our plans are now. And the advice of the Cape Light Compact is that we do an RFP like we did the first time to find a new service provider for our streetlights. So they need, one of the things they need an answer to is, what services Katuitt would like us provided. And the options are nighttime auditive streetlights, traffic lights, we don't have any traffic lights, other area lighting, we don't have that. And we don't have any dimming of our streetlights, which was an option when they were changed over. So the only option that at the moment, we don't have any nighttime audit of streetlights, which means somebody from the company drives around and checks to see if all the lights are working at night, obviously. And that comes as a cost, and I don't know exactly what that cost is, but they would just like to know if we still want to stay in the no category, if we want to move to a maybe, depending on the cost, or say yes. We're at a point now, the lights were installed in 14, and apparently we now are reaching a limit of these LED lights, where replacement is going to be more frequent of the lights. So I don't know how, Seth or Mark, how you feel about looking into the extra expense of having somebody else go around and check the lights.
I mean, we seem to hear about it pretty regular or frequently as soon as one falls down or goes out. You know what I mean? People tend to be on the lookout. It depends. To me, it would depend really how much it costs and if it is prohibitively expensive or if it's something that just is, a small charge for something they're already going to be doing, which is driving around and looking at the lights other places. And they just happen to pass through Katuitt.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Seth. My thought was no. Listening to Fran say that we're getting near the end of the lifespan of these lights, maybe would nudge it to a maybe, but maybe we put it in a maybe and let's see how much it costs when we go to negotiate the contract.
Okay. How does that sound, Seth?
That sounds fine.
Okay, all right. So I'll let them know that we're a maybe. And I also have since that's on the streetlights. The next order of business is, were you able to read over the employment agreement between the Katuitt Fire District and the interim fire chief?
I was.
Okay. And,
I was not. When was that sent?
A couple of days ago,
yeah, a couple of days ago.
I didn't
I can look.
catch it.
Okay, I'll resend it, but
Saturday, I think, what it was.
yeah, that sounds Friday, maybe Friday or Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a agreement in terms of his salary and employment, use of a vehicle, duties, hours of work. And there are no, he's basically just going to be following the contract, but he will not be getting any benefits from the associated benefits that would usually go to the fire chief. So I'd really like to be able to approve this agreement tonight.
You want me to forward it to you now again, Mark? And it's only a page.
That'd be fine. Although if you both have reviewed it and are okay with it, that is a majority.
Right. Here, I'll send it to you real quick. I mean,
yeah,
it was pretty straightforward.
Okay, if you are both okay with it, and if it does need to be done tonight, I can't do it tonight. I can do it tomorrow. And failing that, if you are both okay with it, and I assume Rick is okay with it, of course, then I will voice no objection.
Okay. Rick, does that sound all right?
That would be fine.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the employment agreement between the Katuitt Fire District and the interim chief Smith for the duration of the period of the installing the new fire chief.
Second.
Fran, that's Chief Small.
I'm sorry, keep calling him Smith, Chief Small. And we have a second. All those in favor, Seth?
Seth Burdick, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. Mark? You gonna
I will abstain.
abstain? Thank you. Okay. All right. Freedom Hall. I have we talked about getting a bid for bringing the ladies' room up into the 21st century and also the rest of the plumbing in the hall, which is mostly brass, which is the original plumbing that was put in. So I have one proposal from Spencer Hallett, who is our plumber that we use, and his father prior to him was a plumber for Freedom Hall. So their company has been taking care of the plumbing at Freedom Hall for at least 60 to 70 years. So his quote for a new sink and toilet in the ladies' room and for replacing the brass piping with copper is $8,061.36. So, sorry, I'm losing my voice. This is under the 10,000 mark. So we aren't required to get 3 bids, but I will get 2 more bids if you would prefer me to.
What do you think, Mark? Now I'm losing my voice. Excuse me.
If we get one more, then if we're close, that makes sense. I hate to go with just one.
Okay, I'll get
But-
another.
Fran, we appreciate you taking the laboring oar here.
Okay. So, okay. The governance study. I don't know if there's anything more to say on it.
Well, that reminds me, because I meant to send this to you guys earlier, but I will send it along, but you can read it at your leisure. But I was looking through my notes and records of my emails and things, and I remember that I had spoken with Paul Rude about this, but he had, prior to me speaking to him, had contacted someone relative to a governance study. And we talked about it now. This is almost 2 years ago. I have an email that just kind of outlines, he spoke with Brian Duggan from Municipal Resources, Inc., which I guess is a firm in New Hampshire. And I will forward this email to you that has if you want me to read it to you, I can save time if you prefer. It outlined what their approach would be to a governance study. This is just one firm, one organization, whatever. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Sure.
So MRI is capable and qualified to undertake this project. We would utilize this document, meaning the previous governance study from 1999, to obtain a historical perspective and foundation, which we would blend with finance and an operational perspective to develop a strategic tool that could be utilized to chart the future of the district. I would assign a 3-person team, including an individual specializing in municipal finance, a fire service practitioner, and a town manager to the project. And then he talks about you could do a formal bid, but it's a unique service, specialized, unknown aspects, blah, blah, blah. But he estimated that the cost would be between $22,000 and $26,000. And then he outlines what their fees were at the time, which is almost 2 years ago. So it's probably not relevant. But so, I mean, I don't know. How would the process be exactly? We would have to go through an RFP or RFQ, whatever it would be,
Yes.
with 3 competing bids. And would we do that prior to presenting an article? Or if we decided, would we present an article and then go through the bidding process? If we were to, as a committee, decide to undertake a governance study?
Number 2, present the article and then, just try to get a ballpark figure for what the bidding would be, or the maximum that, the district
people would
wants
be
to
willing to
spend on
pay.
it.
Right. I just thought that was informative because I knew we had had a conversation about it. I managed to find that. So that would be the number, I guess, is what I'm saying, which would be possibly what, 30 to 50,000, maybe less, probably.
Less probably, yeah.
And I don't know if, obviously we have a lot of time before the next district meeting, but I didn't know how, we talked about it briefly, or what your thoughts may be on it this time around, this month. Mark.
Well, I think the real question is, what is the question we want to ask?
That's right.
What is it that we're really looking for guidance on? Is it, there were some topics in that former governance study which don't bear repeating. I think I'm more interested in the parts, basically the nitty gritty is, do we consolidate some of our services? Do we throw in with Barnstable, or do we go solo as a complete entity? And if there's others I'm not thinking of, great. But I think it's probably worthwhile having a discussion about what is it we want to ask.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than giving them carte blanche and say, come up with 35 different options. What I mean?
Yeah.
So what is the best way to, if we were to approach a governance study, would the best approach be to form a subcommittee as we've done with the school, or with, as we do with bylaws or policy? Would it be worthwhile to get community input, or have, maybe have fire commissioner, water commissioner, Prudential committee, or is it part of what, should it be part of a larger process of trying to, I don't even know if it, you know what I mean? Based on that, how do we approach it then, I guess, if it's going to be more targeted as opposed to saying, what makes sense to you as a consultant? If we say, okay, we have this organization that has these resources, provides these services, and is in this fiscal position, what do you think we should do? Meaning the consultant, or do we try to craft what would essentially be our long-term strategy and then take it to the consultants and say, oh, not a long-term strategy, but our goal ultimately, I guess, or 2 or 3, and say, how do we accomplish this end in the framework of our, our organization, our governmental body?
I like the idea of identifying our goals through not that is a final goal. We want to consolidate, or we want to be part of Barnstable, but we would like this level of control over these parts of our areas of concern. That is, are we more concerned that we're interested in controlling our costs and being responsible for those? Are we more interested in having control over the details of how the fire department and the water department is run? It seems to me that if we're going to do this, having a subcommittee might be well worthwhile. I think that's a good suggestion, Seth.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, yeah, the more I think about it, I suppose an undirected study is really not worth the paper that it's printed on, because it ends up like the one that we did, or not we, but our predecessors did 20 years ago.
Well,
Which
there was a reason for doing that, which was, that,
the secession from the town
yeah,
idea.
right. Should we secede from the town of Barnstable?
So maybe we should do that then, rather. I don't know, what would it fall under in terms of, if you were to categorize the committee, what would you say? Would we just say a governance committee, at something like general governance committee, or I don't know, what, planning or direction? I mean, we have policy and bylaws, but
general governance and or strategic planning, because
yeah, I mean, strategic planning makes the most sense, because ultimately, the governance study would be a tool for the strategic planning process. So I guess food for thought. We still have time prior to a long time before we have to come up with anything concrete when it comes to engaging a firm and securing the funds. Maybe we just, think about it.
Sounds good.
I think
Maybe I'll ask around. That's what I generally will do.
yeah. I think having the input from water and fire, having citizen input, of course, would be great, but having input with water and fire, I think, would be really important. That is the members of those committees.
Right. What do you think, Rick and Tom, about this discussion? Either of you?
Well, I would say, first of all, I like your idea of setting some goals. Like, what's the purpose of your governance study? And I haven't heard that articulated yet. So I'm
Right.
not, yeah.
Right.
So that's it.
No, I don't know if that's it, but
Yeah.
that's just much from where I sit, having attended one Prudential committee meeting here in the last year, and that's not much, right? So I'm sure that you've had other discussions about this, and probably some constituents, some of our users have brought it up, and if it's something that we need to do, we would certainly make somebody available to help out on a subcommittee.
And I would second Tom's position. I'd be happy to represent the fire commissioners on such a subcommittee. But yeah, I strongly support the idea of some targeted questions or goals in pursuing it.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. So maybe we'll say TBD on the governance study, and I'll come back with something next month.
I think my 2 cents is that I think the biggest concern is going to be finances. just,
Meaning the general financial picture of the district or the financing of an actual study?
no financing, the general financial picture of the district.
Right.
Costs are going up all the time and, that's,
Right. How do we maintain? Well, I mean, from Tom's presentation earlier, the idea of spending $20 million in the near term, or even in not, just
any term.
we're going to be facing a changing landscape in terms of our financing and the structure of how we,
Yeah.
come up with the money
Yeah.
and tap the base.
Yeah.
And especially as it pertains to the, fire station developments and whatever may become of the school committee. Well, did that appear on our agenda today? Did we have any update on that? Can I mention that under matters not reasonably anticipated?
It wasn't on our agenda, but I can give you a 15-second update, which is that our regularly scheduled monthly meeting was canceled by the town because they had nothing new to report.
Okay.
We were rescheduled for February 16th. I'll let you know.
Oh, good.
We do think that they are trying to push this forward, and we certainly are as well.
They had an optimistic timeline, relatively optimistic for dealing with the town just recently at your last meeting. So
Yeah, my guess is that already, I think that's overly optimistic, but
Yeah.
I like the way they're thinking.
well, there you go.
Great. Okay, thank you. And the last, under matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, and negotiations, just to announce negotiations are going to start with the new chief salary negotiations. And unless there's an objection, I'll continue on with that committee. Okay.
Nope, no objection.
Fine by me.
Who's on that committee, Fran?
I believe it's Rick Passat. No, it's Kevin and Adam Zace.
But so it's all said and done in terms of the hiring of the new chief. I might have missed that. I didn't attend the last meeting or watch it.
Yes,
Besides the negotiation aspect.
signed the salary negotiation. Correct. Yeah.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah. So, and is there any public comment?
I see nothing in the chat room.
Great, thank you very much. All right. I will, our next meeting will be hang on. February 28th is the fourth Monday.
Sounds great.
And to be determined if in person or Zoom, depending on Omicron.
Right.
I'll just say I thought this worked out very well.
Yeah, this is nice. This is
Cozy. Yeah.
almost as good as being in person, right?
Yeah, almost as good without the audio issues.
Yeah, right. And this will be an intelligible meeting for everyone to watch.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
thanks.
At least
everybody.
it'll be
Tom,
audible. I don't know if it'll be intelligible. We'll
Yeah,
see.
exactly. There you go. Now that's wit right there. Well,
So-
thanks a lot.
I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Yes,
Thank
see
you.
you all soon.